there's much to thank Seattle for. Growing up listening to grunge music, I can vote for that. The city is actually considered one of the nation's fastest tech hubs, and one of the oldest and perhaps most strongest and mightiest in that sense is Microsoft. Out of Microsoft comes one of the most experienced and renowned security experts, Gunter Ollmann. He's the CSO, and he's the driver of cross-pillar strategy for cloud and AI initiatives at Microsoft. He has over 3 decades of security experience, and he knows his cybersecurity, that's for sure. However, not resting on his laurels, Gunter continues to explore the field of cybersecurity, and in these days, AI and machine learning is close to his heart. We have been very fortunate to have Gunter speak to us and to have him share his insight with us. He's very virtual in the sense, as the session you're about to see was pre-recorded on Friday last week. The reason being that US is celebrating its Labor Day today, and Gunter is taking some well-deserved time off. And also given the fact that Seattle is 9 hours away. Even so, Gunter has definitely compiled a great talk for you. We are running slightly over time, so his talk is about 25 minutes. I'll wrap up rapidly after that. So once again, fill your cups of coffee, and please do enjoy Gunter Ollmann's talk.
Good morning. My name is Gunter Ollmann. I'm the Chief Security Officer for the Cloud and AI Security Group. So I'm really charged with protecting our Azure customers and innovating and bringing new security technologies through to our customers across the world. And so today, I'm going to be talking about an area of much interest to myself and to many of my customers, and that is the convergence of SOC and NOC in a cloud-native world. So where do we sort of start in this sort of journey? I think a key part to really understand is that modern SOC and modern NOC, especially over the last 20 years, aren't really that different. There's significant overlap in operations and business continuity, especially in the cloud era. So a lot of commonalities. So, for example, tiered 1 to 3 specializations, skill sets, 24/7 incident and event management, mission critical cost of doing business, and let's not forget about that big wall of screens that everyone sort of shares. Traditionally, when I look at the SOC and NOC, in particular, the security operations centers and the network operations centers, there has been both teams, both groups have sort of operated largely independently. So from a SecOps perspective, we're talking about technology such as security incident and event management, IDS, IPS, anomaly detection systems, anti-spam, vulnerability scanning type of things. On the network operations side, much more focus on the core parts of networking, often keeping that network stability, quality of service, and keeping the business running smoothly and communications running smoothly. So VPNs, denials, DNS, network wiring, physical infrastructure, switches and WANs, and then this gray area sort of in between the two groups. Sort of web application firewalls in general, and sort of anti-DDoS. And traditionally, these teams have operated independently with that little bit of overlap, but effectively the network operations centers have been the gatekeepers to providing network security tooling. As customers and organizations have gone through digital transformation, in particular onto the cloud, frankly, that barrier, the grouping, in fact, and most of the technologies have fundamentally changed. And how we would traditionally look at an IDS or anomaly detection systems versus routers and WANs have merged together and really into a new word and acronym soup. But particular the way that these teams and these operations now have to change and work together has made it necessary to rethink how a SOC and NOC operate, and really, from my perspective, this convergence towards a path and journey to a SNOC type infrastructure. if that's sort of happening, out of all the different pressures and all the different sort of forcing functions that are happening in this transformational world, I think there are three key technologies that are forcing this to happen at an accelerated pace, but also changing the way that these teams need to operate. So first and foremost, zero trust networking. Okay, so pre-COVID, a lot of talk about ZTN it was a concept, it was a desire, it was an endpoint that that organizations were aspiring to and were working towards it. Now, post-COVID, or in the middle of COVID, it's become a deployed and critical technology for remote working. What that means, though, from a SOC and NOC operations perspective, is that we now move into a plane of, we're going to assume breach. We're going to talk about things like microsegmentation, so that external barrier, that gap between the different network segments has pretty much disappeared. Right? We now start talking about things such as conditional access, so where authorization and authentication have now melded together to be able to take in live telemetry of the network, of the security layers, of the operational layer, bring this together and make real-time decisions on whether traffic is allowed to pass between networks, between devices, pass between entities, and to understand what's actually going on between those to make key decisions about how the network is going to operate and what the security functions are on those networks. And of course, one of the key concepts of zero trust network has really been about the least privileged access and just-in-time access. The second big piece, particularly for organizations as they are transforming and moving the operations into the cloud, has been infrastructure as code. So in this case, network assets and architectures have become ephemeral in the cloud. What that really means is that with this shift left from a DevOps and CI/CD production or process side of things, means that those assets, that networking infrastructure, those firewalls, those other security technologies, which were at one stage appliances, that became virtual machines, but were seen as sort of static resources, are now managed through code as resource templates. They can be constructed, deconstructed, installed, removed, and completely refreshed at any point in time. And so continuous configuration automation is now built into the infrastructure as code processes. And the last one, much newer in the side, is really things, with my emphasis on Azure, the Azure Edge Zones and Arc. So effectively, what we're talking about here is that on-premises and cross-cloud network borders and controls meld into a single one managed network. So as the cloud edge has extended the workloads closer to population centers, we now talk about ultra-low latency computing. We've seen that the architectures and if you like the network that an organization now manages is now extending, for example, right down to the edge of the 5G architectures, down to deploying at the edge of the organization. But also, if you imagine those on-premise devices and technologies have now transformed from static infrastructure into Kubernetes clusters, and as an organization, you can now start to manage those processes, manage that infrastructure, whether it's on-premise or IoT or at the edge, using the same technologies from the same central organization and same cloud consoles. As part of that transformation, I think a key fundamental technology, when I look at the evolution of SOC and NOC towards a SNOC type operational model, the fundamental technology sitting at the base of this really is the SIEM, so security incident and event management. Over years, it sort of changed from there was a SIEM installation that sort of grew, became a SIEM with SIEMs as organizations tried to handle the volume of data, through to now where we're talking about cloud SIEM, a cloud native SIEM, so a SIEM operating completely in the cloud. What we're also seeing is really the network traffic collectors have now been integrated into that cloud native SIEM architecture and passing through that data. And from a cloud perspective, two new classes of technologies. So cloud security posture management and cloud workload protection platforms. So from a CSPM side, all of that posture information, the vulnerabilities, the policy compliance, the exceptions, the configuration type information now passing up into that cloud native SIEM. And from a CWPP side, of that visibility of the individual workloads right down to the configurations, the files, the infrastructure as code, the inspection of that information being passed back up into the SIEM. And so that SIEM, the cloud native SIEM now, is storing all the logs, the flows, the events, the alerts, right down through to the malware detonations and threat intelligence, all in one place. So huge volumes of data. If that SIEM, that cloud SIEM, has now become that sort of hub for information, the hub of intelligence for the organizations, and being tapped by the SOC teams and NOC teams, what do I sort of view as sort of the cutting edge of SIEM? So today, first and foremost, cloud native, all the data, all the time, hyperscalable, and linked solidly into the cloud automation processes. Graph investigation, so moving into an ability to traverse between entities, whether that's users, assets, apps, or URLs, for example, traverse between activities, logins, transfers, network usage, and be able to dynamically map the scope of an incident, a breakdown or a fault inside the organization or the networks with smart AI helpers. Then we have, from my perspective, machine learning notebooks, the ability to create investigation notebooks, to be able to share these investigation notebooks, to be able to tune these between teams, between organizations, between organizations around the world, being able to train and retrain classifiers to identify new threats, new anomalies, new lapses in configuration, and automated investigation tooling. And last but not least, squeezing it on the edge here, but by all means, the most transformative going forward, artificial intelligence. So being able to reassemble kill chains, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and reassemble all of that information and to position that and understand the events and context of a threat and an attack. Automated anomaly detection, auto retraining of classifiers, and I think in the very interesting area for evolution here is, if you like, bring your own artificial intelligence and machine learning. The ability to take and refine new models, build new anomaly detectors, build new intelligent processes outside of the SIEM architecture, outside of the core security team, and be able to migrate and transform that into the core SIEM and SOC technologies. So if that was sort of a whirlwind tour of cloud SIEM, the bigger part that I'm very interested in seeing it evolve is really the move towards autonomous SNOC, so that convergence of SOC and NOC operations. But beyond that, it's really about how SOC, NOC, AI, bring your own ML, automation, threat intelligence, the community, and the tier 3 professionals, bringing those together to be able to solve real business problems in a highly scalable and to be highly scalable in this world, autonomous way. So the way I view it is that at the hub we have that cloud native SIEM, but deep integration with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And three that are very important for driving this new transformation. So supervised learning, all those trained classifiers, there's pattern detections, there's anomalies that leverage that industry knowledge and apply it automatically into the data sets we have. Deep learning, letting the systems learn and identify new things from the data and the huge volumes of data that are already there. And reinforcement learning, new modes of learning where the systems can solve between certain constraints and optimize a response process. Surrounded by that, the analytics, being able to automatically identify new network anomalies, new user behaviors and entity behaviors. On the other side, community and feeds. So the ability to bring your own machine learning, bring threat intelligence from external sources, be able to leverage the community for optimized playbooks and processes for integration into existing infrastructure processes. Investigation and response, intelligent graph, automatic investigation, incident workflow management, and order enrichment. Order enrichment has become a very important part for moving from a human-based investigation process into a smart learning system and then automated response. So the ability to use the graph type processes to identify these flows, these connected events, and then as that investigation proceeds to automatically add supplemental data that may have not been entirely security or network focused, but adds more color, more flavor, more evidence that can help understand the threat and the business risk. Automation, so intelligent orchestration, the ability to identify and to control various product integrations, be able to optimize rules, policy changes, and to be able to push that out to these security and networking technologies. The AI automation to actually enable that. And a new area is really that smart connector, the ability to take a brand new product, brand new technology, have that deployed inside your organization, inside that cloud, provides the telemetry, and for the SNOC type infrastructure to be able to understand the value of that feed and that data from that new system, but also in a smart way understand what a new orchestration and automation is necessary to enable that to provide additional protection and remedy to threats and incidents. And of course, surrounding that, policy, governance, compliance, and assets, workloads, and processes. In particular, one area that I think is critical, and will, again, force more transformation in this area has really been the DevOps and particular CI/CD pipelines. So with that in mind, it's really about this sort of shift left for autonomous SNOC. And a key part of this is really understanding this high degree of partnership between the DevOps, DevsecOps, SecOps, and NetOps. In fact, in my mind, when I look at the space, I think that these labels, DevOps, SecOps, NetOps, etc., will merge, and I think will redefine what these roles, responsibilities are, and what the team makeup's there. But in the context of this continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline model, I think there are a few parts that are really important. First of all, fix as code. If all the infrastructure is now ephemeral, traditional ways of creating a new ticket, help desk, and support, then going out and applying the new patch, making a configuration change to the affected units, has had to change. If those devices are now ephemeral and are controlled by resource groups and resource templates, then those fixes need to be incorporated into those templates at the very early stages. So they need to become part of that GitHub infrastructure for management. Pipeline API integration. So with that central repository of performance, security, quality of service, and anomaly telemetry across all assets, all systems, all workloads, and all applications, they become that font of data and transforming into that font of knowledge, which all these organizations and all these application processes can now tap fully. With that framework and as a SNOC, then we also end up talking about a single pane of glass for response. So the ability to automate and unify response and threat investigation, performance, and environment debugging in one place in the context of all those elements together. And apply artificial intelligence and machine learning on top of that to automate those remedies, to learn from the operations teams, the tier 3 operations teams, and to incorporate that into the process flow, whether that's through the build, the test, release, deploy, and the operations side. It also means that the SNOC has become, and it will continue to become, the tier 3 hub of expertise. Where are the experts, the consolidated experts operating in one place? Specialized T3 security, networking, software engineering skills in one place becomes their escalation center. And an area that I'm particularly interested in, and by all means, everyone sort of joining me today, I'd encourage any sort of communications and sort of chats really looking at the predictive state. So with that visibility of all those processes, the interconnections between these components, and the way these things are generating new telemetry and the operational model, I believe that we can get into a state where the systems should be able to fuse current, historical, and on-demand data and telemetry, and be able to provide predictive threat and performance models and recommendations. So if that's happening at sort of an automation mechanical level, I get asked an awful lot about what does that mean for my role, our roles as security professionals, network professionals, that are the people behind the screens, the ones that are making responding to these incidents, making decisions, and advising the business on how to secure and to increase the performance and availability of their applications. So yesterday, that stack of skills and responsibilities would encompass tier 1 analyst support, tier 2 analyst support, tier 3 analyst support, proactive investigation, incident response, a little bit of architecture understanding, and being frankly a risk commentator, being able to say, I've seen all these sort of things, and tell the rest of the business saying, I've seen these things are bad, and please don't do this again. Here are my sort of recommendations, but seen as a commentator. Today, leveraging these types of systems, in the cloud native world, what we're really seeing is that from an analyst perspective, tier 1 and tier 2 analyst capabilities, that triaging events, false positive removal, the standard workflow help desk responses have been consumed and assumed responsibility by the automated processes. Meanwhile, we've seen that the architect role has sort of increased, but we've also inherited new roles as being machine learning trainers and a little bit of data scientists. But in compensation for that, what we also see is that the commentator part about risk has now turned more into a risk advisor, being able to work closer with those organization development teams and provide better insights into what they should be doing in the context of what their applications are trying to do. I think as the AI systems, the machine learning systems change and evolve even further, there's there's a greater transformation. I think a key part is that the proactive investigation, the time to just sift through data based on a hunch or some insight that was read somewhere else, a little bit of threat intelligence, and then manually scroll through and try to analyze and frankly stumble across events that I should care about that were automatically detected, should go away, and certainly it needs to go away. And that we'd expect these smarter systems to do it more efficiently on more data and to identify these things. Also expect that the role of the ML trainer and the data scientist will go away. It becomes highly specialized skills, and from a security or network professional, you become a little bit more of an AI trainer. But I think the biggest part and the biggest change for this really is the transformation of being a risk commentator to risk advisor to being a business risk expert. So integrated, being a partner with those business teams, being able to translate that network, that performance, that security information, that intelligence, that expertise into how the business operates, and to enable those business teams as a partner to solve these problems in one place. So that brief talk, looking at what are some of the conclusions. First of all, autonomous SNOC is a journey. We're very early in this very early on in this journey. Cloud adoption continues to drive that SecOps and NetOps transformation. Cloud SIEM is evolving as the hub of SNOC, right? And as the world advances more on the AI integration, I expect that to accelerate as we go forward. Roles and responsibilities will continue to change. Okay, machine intelligence will reliably automate tier 1 and tier 2 investigation and response. Okay. Today, we still, I often laugh that when I started for internet security systems way back in about year 2000, and the first generation of intrusion detection systems, we evolved to intrusion prevention systems. And still 20 years later, organizations are still hesitant to turn the D to a P and to enable that automatic protection. And so I think that has to change. It is changing, and more trust and more proof points from machine learning and artificial intelligence will enable that automated response. Also, that integration into the CI/CD pipeline processes, extending SNOC value into the DevOps processes. And last but not least, I think the analyst roles become more specialized with deeper business influence. So a lot of people could question whether these long-term roles, being a network or security professional, are going away and replaced by the artificial intelligence, these automated systems. I'd argue that the grunt work, that staring at screens is disappearing. However, that value, those insights, that if you like, that hacker mentality, that operations mentality is being incorporated and driving more business value into the raw business and the parts of the business that are actually building and adding new revenue and value to the companies directly. So with that brief overview and insights into where I sort of see how SNOC and NOC are converging, security operations and network operations converging into a SNOC platform. I'd certainly welcome any further discussion. I'd love to hear people's insights, argue one way or another, and by all means, love to communicate and have those discussions and work with you in moving and transforming business further and bringing the next generation of SNOC to the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Gunter. Okay. That was very good and very interesting. I must say the evolution of the analyst's role is very interesting in terms of where the industry is going and where we're going with this.
It's one of the things I hear.
Interesting perception.
It's one of the things I hear a lot about and almost conscious of, and that is, we talk about artificial intelligence and all this big data and how everything is going to become so much better and so much streamlined, and then everyone says, "Well, what about my job?"
Exactly.
It's important, But a part that's sort of missing, and we haven't figured it out, is that, many of those security professionals, those tier 3 people, have 10, 20 years of experience doing this type of work. But they got to those levels by doing that grunt work, the tier 1, tier 2, and so they had all the scars to achieve that. If we remove those tier 1 and tier 2, then how do we build the next generation of tier 3 analysts without that experience? Right.
Exactly, and that's probably a separate webinar all in itself, actually. So, I think so, yeah. So we'll be happy to invite you back to discuss that one. Most definitely.
Well, hopefully, maybe come May or next year, or things look a lot better. Then
let's see if we can get you on stage. That will be wonderful.